Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Hello. Welcome back to We All Have Stuff. This is episode 65. Look at us.
65.
Yay. So, we have kind of a fun topic for our new and up and coming therapists that are new to the profession. Kind of important stuff to put out there that I think we've all dealt with this, right? We've all dealt with the grad school training versus real life. It's like Instagram versus reality, but like
Right.
our job. Um, and this pops up a lot in our videos and like on TikTok, and we see a lot of new therapists be like, I didn't know what to expect. It's so different, right? And we've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, here's debunking some grad school myths.
Cool myth. So, what are some grad school myths that you would say that you've noticed?
Okay, I think the most important one is about self disclosure.
Yes. Oh my God, I could go on a tangent about this shit.
Yeah, me too. I think many of us can. In grad school, and I think this is true for our master's program through my doctoral program, it was drilled into our heads that self disclosure is a bad thing. Don't talk to your clients about you because it shifts the focus of the session to you and not on the client. I disagree. I think obviously there are limits, right? You're not going to tell them your whole life story, but it is therapeutically helpful sometimes to share things about your life. Like we're people too, right? We're not just a robot. We're not just this sterile kind of person. So yeah, I'll die on the hill that like you can disclose some things.
Absolutely. I feel like there just has to be boundaries around it, right?
Yeah, right. I agree. I mean, I think it's okay if a client is like, oh, what do you do for self care? Like, give me some ideas, right? And you're like, oh, yeah, girl, like, I love to bake or I go to the beach or whatever. Or if they're like, oh, are you a parent? Or, I'm from this state. Are you originally from Florida or whatever? And I think that that's okay to share because, again, part of the core of a therapeutic relationship is trust. And if you don't know anything about another person, like in any relationship, how can you establish trust? Just by feeling comfortable with someone, I feel like that's kind of not enough. And, we're not going to trauma dump on a client. We're not saying that. We're not saying share your deepest, darkest secrets, but it's okay to sometimes offer, like, hey, you lost your pet. Like, I get that. That's happened to me too, you know?
Right.
And it really helps them open up and see you as someone who is relatable and who does have that really vulnerable side also.
Right.
So, myth number one, no self disclosure.
Right. I also
Yeah.
use a lot of examples, like
Sure.
whether it's not even me, whether if it's my friend or somebody I know
Mhm.
that's been through something. I'm like, here's an
Yeah.
example when I'm trying to like psychoeducation, like
Sure.
this happens, and it's like, how do you get it to see? How do you get that person to see it outside of themselves in a different
Yeah.
situation but similar? Or I'll be like, this is what made me look at this, right? Like this is
Right.
something. This is how I approached it. This is how, and it definitely helps people be like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, okay, what's another one? What's something else that happens in grad school modeling and education that you think doesn't translate well to doing this
Um,
IRL?
I think a lot of times, and I think we just need to define it. I
Mhm.
think our program, at least, I remember there was a lot of talk around professionalism. And I'm
Mhm.
like, how do we just define that? Because it's like, there's a fine line between being professional but still owning your personality. And
Sure.
I think it's interesting to be like, don't act this way and make sure you talk like this and it's like you get this picture of, and I think that's why a lot of people are hesitant to come to therapy because you get this picture of I'm gonna old school. I'm gonna walk in,
Yeah.
there's gonna be this couch, like Freudian stuff, and there's gonna be some
Hmm.
person with a clipboard like analyzing the shit out of me, not saying
Yeah.
much, and I'm gonna lay on a couch.
Yeah.
And they're going to be super professional and to themselves and prim and proper. And I'm going to
Hmm.
have to just tell them all my stuff and they're going to help me figure it out. And I'm like, and I feel like in grad
Hmm.
school, I kind of had this idea like, oh, so I have to like simmer my personality down and like
Yeah.
make sure I don't do this and say this. And
Sure.
which is crazy because it's the opposite of what we teach for a living. It's like, how do you
Yeah.
own who you are and attract
Hmm.
like people that are meant for you?
Yeah.
And I think I had to learn a lot about like, oh, my supervisor helped me that. Like, no, own your personality more. Like, stop being scared to
Hmm.
like say this. Stop being worried to like confront somebody this way. Stop being worried about like
Yeah.
trusting if that client is comfortable with that and like that's like your energy too. Like, encourage them.
Sure.
Like if this is the space and that's your vibe, like I get it. That's my vibe too.
Yeah.
So I definitely think just figuring out in a boundary setting way in what professionalism looks like, that it doesn't have to be this prim, proper, old
Yeah.
school etiquette way to like show up and be like business professional in this way.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, especially in my other program, it was very heavily emphasized like the way that you dress, the way you speak. Don't bring certain items into a therapy session. Like you can't have your own water. It was like you can't use tissues and like weird stuff, you know? So to me, I'm like, okay, well, on the contrary, I have morning clients that we bond because we both bring our tea or our
Right.
coffee. And it's like, hey, girl, you know, what are you drinking today?
Right.
It opens the conversation, also makes it like less painful. Sometimes having something to drink gives you the freedom to take a pause. Where I personally struggle with, I did as a student, I struggled with enacting the pause, you know? And it's a way when you're like, okay, well, let me have something that I could just reach for and give my client a second to think and give me a second to think, right? Those things are good. They could be used therapeutically. Do I think you need to come dressed super inappropriately and casually? No. I think there is a respect thing, right?
Unless you're virtual.
Have
Virtual, you can
yeah.
hide that. But
Virtual, yeah. I mean, yeah, pro tip, 90% of your virtual therapists are wearing sweatpants. Okay?
absolutely. But
You
I'm not
can't
going to
see
go
it.
into my office wearing sweatpants.
No. But, you know, is it okay to wear like a hoodie? Sure. Is it okay to wear like a pullover or just something a little more casual? Yeah, maybe not for a first session, but if you know that your client is vibing, like I have clients that do sessions in their car and they're
Right.
like in a snuggie, you know? So if it's 9 p.m. and they're like, you don't look comfortable, that's awkward conversation to have when you're still like in a button down shirt, you know?
Right.
That doesn't really set the person at ease either. So I think that it's about you being comfortable, but you being able to maintain your professionalism too.
Right.
You know, obviously you don't want distractions. You know, I actually saw a TikTok where this girl was saying that she saw in her therapist's glasses reflection that the therapist had the TV on and she was watching the Kardashians during their session.
Gosh.
Highly inappropriate. Like that's something
Highly
you don't do.
unprofessional because that's just right,
Unprofessional.
unprofessional at that point. It's like, who wants
Yeah.
to go to a therapist who like you're
Was
not
like
paying attention?
not paying attention. Right. So things like that, yes, your environment needs to be conducive to providing a session, whether that's in person or not, you know, or
Right.
virtual, right? But I do think that in grad school, it's so driven into you that you have to be 100% like buttoned up and sterile almost, and that's just not the reality. You know,
Yeah.
it's really not. On the contrary, if I walked in as a therapist to someone's office and they were buttoned up with a clipboard, I'd be like, this is a one and done for me, baby.
Yeah.
You know? Like what I don't feel at ease. I feel very much like my guard's up already.
Right.
So I think that's number two, right? So we've got self disclosure, we've got what is professionalism. And we would love to hear from everybody, obviously, what your thoughts on that are. But it's fine to be yourself. You know, that's why people will refer to you like, hey, I love my therapist. She's really relatable. She's cool. She's casual. I feel comfortable, right?
Right.
So there's that. I think number three for me, this is like a hill I will always die on. Therapeutic silence is not always the best tool. That is so driven into us. And I like it as a tool.
I
But
like it
for
as a
me,
tool.
yeah, I like it as a tool sometimes, but it's not always the best. And I think it's even especially in my program, it was like, well, you just sit there sometimes and do nothing. And some clients are like, okay, we can sit here for 30 minutes in silence. And to me, being forced to do that as a student was very uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think there's a good amount of silence where you then address it. At least that's my approach, right? A
Like
couple minutes and it's like, what are you thinking about? But to have like a standoff, the way that a lot of programs will make you do, like you sit there until they say something. I don't find that helpful. I think it's more helpful to say, well, sounds like you're struggling to come up with an answer to that. Like
yeah.
where are your thoughts going? Let's guide people and not make them feel so like, okay, this is awkward.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to say? That's just my take. I think some tools are just so pushed in these like mock therapy environments. Like, well, you should have just been quiet. You should
Yeah,
have said,
I think it depends for me at least. I'm like, for me, it depends on the client because I do
yeah,
think it's a tool, and I think why I think it's a good tool for certain clients is like
mhm,
they're so uncomfortable that you have to give them a taste. Now, do I think I'm gonna
yeah,
make somebody sit there for 25 minutes? No, I'm like,
no,
that's to me that is excessive
yeah,
because I'm like, are you just sitting here in silence? Or like after a few minutes, I'm gonna be like, all right, they tasted 3 minutes of silence is a long time.
is a long time,
It's a
right?
long time. So I'm like, if I have them sit there and then be like, okay, well, how was that? Like,
Yeah,
now what, let's try to do it with like, tell me what thoughts are coming up or check in with your body and teaching them
hmm,
that.
yeah,
But like,
right,
yeah, like, what are you going to do? Like, be like, just sit there in silence until they break because
hmm,
that's a long time. And that's,
yeah,
I don't know, there's eventually, do I think it works? Yes. But I also think they don't teach us enough to like give them a taste of it. Like, you're not just
sure,
supposed to just be like, let's sit in here in like mutual silence
hmm,
for the whole
right,
session.
yeah,
Yeah.
agree.
So that
Okay,
was
what's yeah,
that was
that's
three.
three. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. That you I mean I think this was kind of that we could choose multiple, but also like that you have to know what therapeutic approach that
Ugh,
you're
yeah.
always going into with. It's like and
Mhm.
I remember just being confused even in grad school after like what is my therapeutic approach? I kind of like this and they're like, "Well, you could kind of take a few bits, but then when you're going to present or like when people when people apply even to jobs it's like what's
Mhm.
your therapeutic approach like I think that's a
Yeah,
weird
right.
question which
Yeah.
like I get that we want to know but I don't think it has to be said in like the framework verbiage if that makes
Hmm.
sense it could be
Yeah,
like well this is my approach and how I approach my clients
right.
this is kind of maybe the theory but this is my overall where I'm going with it.
Yeah, and I do think that they very often training programs in the interest of educating you how to apply protocols. It's important to
Yeah.
understand like this is what the idea behind this methodology is. But in practice, you're not going to go into any number of sessions with someone and say, "Okay, we are at step C in this process," right?
Right.
That
Check.
just is it check, okay, we did that last week, so we're past that part already, you know?
Right.
That doesn't
Could you
work.
imagine if it worked like that?
Yeah, right.
Good
Okay.
job. We passed the
Actually,
first one
stop right
check.
there. We're done with that. We're not
I
processing that
mean,
anymore.
I wish our lives would be easier, and I wish that was therapy for me. That I could be like, check, I'm done with that. Like,
Done
whoa.
with that forever. Chapter closed. Yeah, but in reality, it's not like that. And I think it is a measure of a good, confident provider to be able to say, okay, well, we need to back up a little bit
Yeah,
because you didn't quite get that concept. Like we haven't quite gotten there yet in this general map out of what we're doing.
yeah,
But to that idea also, I remember being told like, okay, go in with an outline for your session.
yes. And I don't do that
How
ever now.
freaking awkward. Yeah, and it's awkward too because what happens like you go in with an outline for the session, and this did happen in my training where I'd have a beautiful outline, and my client would come in and be like, everything we talked about off the table. I got to talk to you about something else. And it's
Right.
like,
Or they
I'm
walk in
I
bawling
feel
about
so
something that just
unprepared.
happened, and you're
Right.
like, but hold on, can we go to
But the
plan A?
outline. Yeah, right.
I
You
know you're
know?
crying because you just got in a fight with your partner, but step A. Like,
Yeah, right. Last week let's revisit that because that's what I'm here to. I think if you need to be so prepared that you can handle curveballs in a session, that you're not also going to be beholden to this outline of 5 minutes to part C, 6 minutes to part D, and then you're running out of time and they throw you some new lore, and you're like, okay, well, I didn't even get to half my outline. I'm stressed now. You have
and
to
I guess
be able. Yeah,
my theory on that is like why and this is my training after grad school for sure
hmm,
but like why are we having an agenda for the person.
right.
I think that's like crazy because that is how we're
Yeah.
trained like our job as a therapist to have an agenda for you which is like
Mhm.
the opposite if you think about it of therapy which is
Yeah.
you walk in what is your agenda like where are you at today
Hmm.
and how can I follow you instead of trying to lead you
Yeah.
it's like
No, it's
backwards
true.
it's
I
interesting.
agree. And I this actually came up in my training at one point because I had a very difficult client as a doctoral student, It was like a multiple therapist failure kind of client where I got her after many student therapists had basically been fired by her. And it was one of those situations where my supervisor was like, okay, let me see your outline for tomorrow with this client. And she came in and totally rocked my world with a completely new whatever her next crisis was at that time. We didn't get through an outline. We didn't problem solve anything. And she left bawling, which I think whatever number we're at, number 5, spoiler alert, not every single session is going to go great. You're going to have clients
Absolutely
leave.
not.
And I remember being so confused and honestly pissed off that I went to my supervisor's office that same day and was like, I don't get it. Like, do I need to quit? Because not only did our session totally go off base, but she left sobbing.
Right.
And he was like, okay. And I'm like, no, not okay. Because you keep telling us that we have to end on a high note and that every session we need to do
Which is
a
fucked up.
review. It is so messed up. And I was like, I think I'm not cut out for this. Like, this is not going according to plan, you know? Like, we're so drilled into this mindset of like, you're always going to feel like you did something. And that is the furthest thing from the truth, you
Right.
know? Where like, we apologize sometimes, like, I know this doesn't feel good, but
Yeah.
this is part of it. You know,
Right.
it's the hard work is not always going to feel like I had a great session today. Sometimes I'm like, that freaking sucked.
100%. You're like, we're trying to
You know?
regulate people's emotions. So how
Yeah.
how not fun is that to be like, this person sucks at feeling sad, so I'm gonna teach them to sit in some sadness today, and then they're gonna leave and be like, wow, I just paid to feel sad.
Right.
Like, yeah, you did actually, because you
Yeah,
weren't
that
gonna do it.
happens.
You don't even know how to do it, and I'm just here to help you do it.
Yeah.
Right. So I
Mhm.
made that one TikTok about that. Like young
Yeah.
therapists, a lot of people commented like, "You got it totally wrong if you think your client is supposed to get off your couch, walk out." Like, thank you. I feel so much
Yeah, that was
better.
amazing. Yeah. And it's okay for you when they leave to be like, I don't feel great about that.
Right.
It is okay. You're not always going to have this like earth shatteringly good revelation every single session. And that doesn't make you a bad therapist. It also doesn't make you a bad therapist if your client tells you, I didn't like that.
Right.
That didn't work for me. Everybody's different. And that's part of the work that you do together.
That's why our work is so hard because it's subjective.
Yeah.
Like what you do with one client might not work for the next one. It's like having that confidence to be like, all right, like this just isn't working for this person and I have to reroute now and
Yeah.
help them in another way, and it's fine because what
Right.
it works for others, so it just doesn't
Yeah.
work for this one, you know? And that's
Right.
hard to do when because there's not a accurate formula for what we do.
No. But it does make it confusing when you're starting out, I think,
Yeah,
because there's so many options and it is okay to have to problem solve like what's your approach? What are you comfortable with? It's also okay to set boundaries and be like, I am not going to see a client that presents with ABC. That is okay. And it is okay to feel like you can't be neutral. Like whatever number we're on, 6, being 100% neutral is not humanly possible. It's not. You can be objective. You can, as we're supposed to be trained to do, treat people regardless of what they think, what they believe in, what they like, what they don't like, what they're presenting. We should be able to say, hey, I got you. Like, I can help you with that. But it's also okay to know your limitations. It's okay to say, I don't have capacity for high crisis clients. So if that's you, I'll refer you out.
Right.
I don't have capacity for people with a certain presentation because I went through that and it's very difficult for me.
Right.
That's okay. It's okay to know that and it's honest because that's the ethical thing to do. And I think we're so scared in grad school with that's unethical, that's not allowed. You know,
Right.
you have to be not unbiased, you have to be neutral. It's not possible. Like that's why it's okay to laugh with clients in session. It's okay to sometimes get upset and emotional with them in session. We've talked about that, you know, like clients that go through things like an impending loss or they're pregnant after infertility or something where you're like, we've been through a lot of vulnerable stuff together. Like that affected me too. And it's like, oh, well, now you're unethical because you laughed at their joke, you know, or you shed a tear in session with them, you know? How dehumanizing is it for a human centered career to not be able to show that you're a person too.
Right.
And it's
Exactly.
like so frowned upon. So like
Which is
spoiler alert,
crazy.
yeah, it's so crazy that I don't get that.
Right. I think I'm sad about it because I think it just sets people up.
Yeah.
Like it sets a lot of new therapists up to like feel like they're doing stuff wrong because
Yeah.
of the way we're trained in school, right? It's like
Mhm.
that's why there's so much imposter syndrome with our career.
Yeah.
People are like, I don't know what I'm doing because they, we're like systemized to be like, this is the steps and this is how it should look. And then I think it's hard to be like, oh, my job is to make my client feel better. But I think if they would train us more to be like, your goal is to help them live an overall happier life, but it's not the
Yeah.
session.
No.
Like, you don't always see it in the session. You see it like, I always deem it as like parenting. Like,
Hmm.
you really don't know until your kids are what? Your kids hit like, say in their 20s and they're like, oh my God, mom, I get it now. Like, thank
Yeah.
you for doing all that shit. You're like, oh my God, it fucking worked, right? You
Yeah.
don't see what's actually what it's doing until they're grown up, right?
Right.
I feel like the same as a therapist. You're like, I might not see this, and then you might come in a year from now and be like, oh my gosh, Alessia,
Yeah.
like I feel so much lighter than I did a year ago. Oh,
Yeah.
if this would have happened last year, I would have had a breakdown and lost my shit and been in a depressive hole for
Mhm.
5 months. This time,
Yeah.
I like literally, I lasted 4 days and I got out of it. Like, how cool is that? And you're like, okay, it fucking worked, right?
Right.
But you don't see it in session to session all the time.
No.
That's what they don't tell us. They're just like, okay, see your
Yeah.
clients.
Right.
Sadly, when people are using insurance and you're like, you're supposed to fix people with 6 free sessions,
Yeah. Right.
Like,
Yeah. Or
that's not
12. And I mean, I think there's value in asking clients, like, what is your expectation? I always ask that question in a consult, like, how much time are you thinking you want to dedicate to this? Because if you're telling me I want a 6 session, quick and dirty,
yeah.
we're doing a totally different approach. It's probably not even possible. But like, I want to know what you're expecting because people do come out of, insurance based limitations or their
Right.
doctor's like, oh, I'm going to sign off on 12 sessions or whatever it is. And that's so limiting, especially when you consider like we have to build trust. We have to get to know each other. I have to know your history to be able to help you. And sometimes that's 2 or 3 sessions right there.
Yeah.
So, oh, well, therapy's a failure. No, you're not a failure. It's just you work with what you have. Let's pick one thing instead of everything, Ben.
Right.
But, that's part of, and again, I don't want anyone to misunderstand that we're like just going in on our training, right? And saying, oh, it's just not realistic. But because I do think it's important to be a little bit more stringent. But at the same time, when you're putting someone into the real world and in the field, I think it's important to say, this is the rule, but this is the flexibility you have. This is what it looks like in real life, And I think that is important so that you don't have these like little deer in headlights new therapists who feel like everything that they touch is going to break. We're going to cause more harm. And it's really okay to just be a human, and say like, I happen to also have expertise. That's something I will always remember about working in inpatient psych when they would be like, how old are you? And the question that we were trained in that setting wasn't to be like, oh, why does that matter? Because I hate that question. Oh, why does that matter to you? Right? Sometimes it's not that
It does
deep. Sometimes, yeah, it does. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, but who cares, right? It's not that deep. My answer would always be like, well, it doesn't really matter, but what I can promise you is I have skills that I can help you.
Because that's
You
what they're
know?
scoping out, right? They're like, when they
Yeah.
ask,
Do you
how old
have
are you?
skills?
It's like,
Yeah, I do.
it matters to them because they're like, how trained are you?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and more often than not, they were satisfied with that answer. Okay, let's see what you got.
Right.
And that's the reality that you don't have to have an answer for everything. It's also okay to Google resources when you hang up from a session.
Absolutely.
It's okay to not know everything and be like, get back to you.
Yeah,
You
let them
know?
know that being honest with them of like, I don't know. Because there's sometimes like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
we'll
let me
figure
get
it out
back
as
to
we
you.
go, or
Yeah,
I'll ask other
that's
colleagues.
okay.
Yeah. One other
Right.
thing I want to say before we end, because I know we're making this
Yeah.
episode shorter, but I also think at least couple wise,
Mm-hmm.
when you mention the unbiased, like I think there's a lot of therapists that try to stay like neutral, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you have to really realize if somebody's in some toxic ass pattern, your job's to call it out. Because I think a lot of
Yeah.
therapists stay neutral, like, let's see perspective and let's see size, but I valid. Yes, we're gonna do that, but if I wish they would be like, no, but if somebody's doing some really toxic ass, fucked up shit, like it's your job to be like,
Hmm.
hey, I just need you to know that I get it, you have your own perspective, but that what you're doing is toxic.
Yeah. Right.
And a lot of times there's like this beat around bush way that
No.
I think we're like trained, or it's like, okay, you have to be neutral and nice and kind and like make
Yeah.
sure you're intervening in
No,
a
it's a
certain way. And I'm like,
disservice.
I'm just going in to be like toxic, using the word toxic, abusive, using the word
Hmm.
abusive, like
Right.
being straight direct because you're like, if you guys or you want this to work, you really just need to know that's the language for that.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
don't be scared
Yes.
to use those verbiages with people because it actually helps people see stuff a lot
Right.
more.
Yeah. It's a service. We're doing a service, right? It is a disservice to not be honest and not call out what you see because
Yeah.
that's what they're coming to us for, right? I can't see it. What do we do? And you're like, actually, you're the problem.
Yeah.
This is a problem.
Like you might
That's a
both be
problem.
part of the problem, but this right
Yeah.
here is the thing that's going to end
Yeah.
y'all, okay? Like,
Yeah.
all right, Pod Squad, thanks for hanging out with us. If hopefully we have
Yeah.
some
Please give
like
us some feedback
young
and thoughts. We talk
therapists.
about this a lot. So we would love to help some newbies get on their feet.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, we'll see you on TikTok and
See
all
you
the
on
things.
TikTok.
Love you.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.